That might be the face you're making. That's the problem there. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Eleanor has decided to work on her hair at precisely the moment the show starts. Hope everyone's doing well out there. I am joined by Eleanor Goldfield.
Hello.
I'm Lee Camp, the most censored comedian in America.
I don't know. That's kind of butch, isn't it? Not you.
Me saying the most censored comedian in America is kind of butch?
No, the way my hair looks right now.
We'll leave it. We'll crowdsource it, folks. Is it too butch? Or...
Like I'm totally cool looking bi and queer. I don't want to look full on. Oh, fuck it. Okay. This is just gonna have to.
Oh, I don't know how, but I feel like this is offensive in some manner.
No,
I haven't nailed it down.
It can't be offensive if I'm bi.
Yeah, that's what the Jewish guards in the Holocaust said.
They were bi?
All right. It can't be a Holocaust if I'm a guard and I'm Jewish.
Okay, well, as my Jewish friend said when we were on a walk a couple of years ago, the two of us, she was like, it's not two Jews on a walk until someone makes a Holocaust joke.
So you're saying our walk has begun.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Let's try this again. Welcome to Common Censored. Thanks for being here. We're going to get to a bunch of stories, including the police stealing your DNA data, new information on that. We're going to get into the Medicaid catastrophe. It's a catastrophe, but it's really an intentional catastrophe by the Biden administration. And, of course, cheered on by Republicans. But
aren't most of the catastrophes in the U.S. intentional?
Yeah, yeah. It's not even falling ass backwards into catastrophe. It's driving headlong into catastrophe. Yeah. I'd say that's true. We're going to get into just a bunch of things, a bunch of important stories. So thank you for being here. We're also going to reveal for the first time the trailer to Eleanor's new documentary. It's finally here, folks. Or is it next week? It's fine. The documentary comes out next week.
Yes.
Okay. So it's just about finally here. For those of you who liked Hard Road of Hope, the award-winning doc, there is a new one by the same person who did Hard Road of Hope. So
that is true.
All right, but let's get started. Thanks, everybody, and please click thumbs up, click share, click follow on Rumble, and hate everyone on Locals. You're really the people that keep this show going, so thanks for doing that.
Thanks.
All right, let's do it. So this is coming from The Intercept, and they have new reporting on how exactly police are stealing your DNA data, which the idea of this is not a new thing. We've talked about it before. Many people have, about when you send your DNA data off to these companies, Ancestry, 23andMe. Apparently there's 5 companies now. I only know about those 2, but the one they're referencing a lot in this article is GED Match.
I thought GED was something you got if you dropped out of high school.
I thought so too. So I don't understand why they would choose that. I think probably genealogy is probably part of the GED. But
all right, carry on.
They match you with someone else who has dropped out of high school. But anyway, this article talks about. So it focuses a little bit on this one genealogist, Cece Moore, who's famous from the TV series where they track people's families and stuff. But
that sounds dark.
Not track them down. They're not like hunting people's families. No, they
it's Hunger Games, but with a genealogist.
With your families. Yeah. But genealogists like Cece Moore hunt for relatives, and they don't mean hunt with guns. I mean, and build family trees just as traditional genealogists do, but with a twist. They work with law enforcement agencies and use commercial DNA databases to search for people who can help them identify unknown human remains or perpetrators who left DNA at a crime scene. Now, I'll get to more of the details in a second, but it always starts with something where you're like, well, who's opposed to that? Who's opposed to tracking down a murderer or figuring out who a body is and telling their family we found her body or his body? Who could possibly be opposed to that? No, we're not opposed to that. We're opposed to every fucking else thing it gets used for.
Well, and it's the same thing that they'll use the increased spying to say things like, oh, well, we got to track down pedophiles on the internet. It's like that. First of all, you can do that already. And second of all, that's not what you're going to be using this for. You're going to be using this to spy on people organizing events, on people talking shit about the government, which is protected speech. Like, you're not using it to go after, because if you did, you just walk down to the fucking nearest Catholic church and knock on the door. Like, you don't even need this vast. You like that one?
Got him. Got the Catholic Church. No, I'm always down for ragging on the Catholic Church, but no, absolutely. And I remember when the first ever, because when drones became a thing, and then there were miniature drones, and people said, you know, or even not just miniature, like close to full size, but they were saying, are they allowed to operate these over American airspace? And the answer initially was no. And then I remember the first ever drone used, like high scale drone. We're not talking about a little toy. The first official drone usage was that some police department like tracking down a pedophile who had kidnapped a kid. And I was like, there it is. There it is. It's begun. Where it's like, no one could be opposed to that. And we would never use it for anything other than chasing a pedophile down the street with a fucking drone over his head. Like, no, of course. They always pretend it's only going to be used for the thing no one can be against. And then it always is used for other things. But all right, so the practice is not without controversy. It involves combing through the genetic information of hundreds of thousands of innocent people in a search for the perpetrator. And its practitioners operate without meaningful guardrails. Here's our government failing to put in any kind of restrictions to these things. The last 5 years have been, quote, the Wild West, according to Moore. But she was proud to be among the founding members of the Investigative Genetic Genealogy Accreditation Board, which is developing professional standards and practices. I
just like to point out that because we have the largest prison population in the world, you're definitely, everybody watching this, you're definitely related to somebody who's in the system. So when they search for the guy who did that or the woman who did that, they could be combing through your DNA, because guess what? We're all fucking related to somebody who's broken the law. I mean, let's be honest, everybody's broken the law. It's just that not everybody gets caught for it.
I declare my goldfish as a dependent on my tax forms. So that's what I do.
As you should, because you know what? He is a dependent.
It's true. He is.
He'd fucking die without you. So yeah, I mean, this is like, I wanted to mention that because I think a lot of times people listening might think, well, that's a little fucked up, but I mean, it's not going to affect me because I'm not a criminal or my cousin's not a criminal or whatever the fuck. But it's like, if you've ever been arrested for anything, like I've been arrested for being drunk in public and they took my fingerprints, that seems unnecessary because it's not like they need them to tie me to a heinous crime that happened while I was falling over myself in public.
Imagine the shit you were speaking when you were arrested for drunk in public. The shit you must have said to the cops, I'm sure, was epic.
It probably was, but I don't remember. Unfortunately, it was 18-year-old Eleanor, and 18-year-old Eleanor was rough.
Talk about no filter. That no filter has no filter. Well, so speaking of what you were just saying, the whole idea of like, well, I'm not a criminal, so I can't impact me. We've heard that argument before, and that is kind of what this woman, Cece Moore, pulls some of that shit. So the article says the practice relies on public trust to convince people not only to upload their private genetic information to commercial databases, but also to allow police to rifle through that information. If you're doing something you wouldn't want blasted on the front page of the New York Times, Moore said, you should probably rethink what you're doing. So this is the old, like, well, if you aren't doing something wrong, you got nothing to worry about. But if you're someone who's doing the bad thing, but this is used in authoritarian systems all the time, where it's like, if you aren't doing anything wrong, and guess what? The laws change. They become co-opted by corporate America and then they make anything they want illegal. You know, there's people, you and I talk about them regularly, people who are arrested for chalking outside a bank and saying, you know, don't go to this bank. People writing stuff on the windows of banks or oil companies. People chaining themselves to pipeline. All this stuff shouldn't be illegal, but they make it highly illegal.
But even so, I remember I worked on a film called Kill Switch. It's actually a really great film. People should check it out. It's from several years ago, like 2009 or something. But in that, it talks about Snowden and about whistleblowers and all of this stuff, and like the concept of breaking the law. And one of the guys says, well, I guarantee that you've broken the law. And, the person is like, well, no, I don't. And it's like, did you read through the iTunes user agreement?
and click, I've read this.
Right. That is technically illegal. The guy points out that 17 Magazine, it's called 17 Magazine, in the user agreement, it says that I'm 18 years or older. What the fuck? Talk about a honey trap.
Yeah.
I mean, so like that you have all of everybody has fucking broken the law, like going 1 mile over the speed limit. Like the law is there.
Or not chugging Robitussin and then driving a car.
Honestly, I feel like some people should not operate heavy machinery even stone cold sober. But
half the drivers on the road, I'd say.
But so the point is that, and we see this oftentimes with activists, like they'll arrest them and they'll rifle through their history and find something that they can get them for. It's also why a lot of times arrests are done, and the reason is resisting arrest. Like why are you arresting me? Why are you resisting arrest? So it's like it's so easy to just find
why
a
were you
reason,
arresting
right?
me in order for
Let's
me
go
to
back.
resist it? But how did the arrest begin? But for me to have something to resist while we were arresting you for resisting arrest.
So it's so easy to find shit on someone. And so this idea that like, well, don't do it if you don't want to get caught. It's like, don't do what? Anything could be construed and twisted and used against you. Yeah.
So this bullshit about we just get the bad guys. It is complete bullshit. And then I just want to read a little bit more. So beyond that, not only yes, they're using the data that people publicly upload to these various companies, but there's a loophole in at least one or more of the companies where you can opt out of, because they'll sometimes ask you in their user agreement, they'll ask you, do you want to opt out of allowing this information to be used by law enforcement? Now, there's millions of people across America that are like, I like law enforcement. They enforce the laws. And so, yes, they can use my data. So there's plenty of people like that. But there's also plenty of people that are like, fucking no, you can't have my DNA data. And they opt out. But the loophole, which a source demonstrated for The Intercept, allows genealogists working with police to manipulate search fields within a DNA comparison tool to trick the system into showing opted out profiles. In records of communications reviewed by The Intercept, Moore and two other forensic genetic genealogists discussed the loophole and how to use it. In a separate communication, one of the genealogists described hiding the fact that her organization had used that loophole in order to find information.
So I'm also wondering where are these opt-outs happening?
So at least with the GED match, with the people failing out of high school, so the family tree, DNA, and GED match,
okay,
you grant access.
So it's like part of
grant police access, but give users the choice of opting in or out.
But again, that obviously doesn't matter because this fucking loophole.
Right.
So you think you're opting
out. Yes.
Isn't that just the fucking that's a metaphor for the US, isn't it? Well, I wanted to opt out of this fucking nightmare, but they keep finding a way to pull me back in.
Yeah, I'm going to opt out of Minority Report. I mean, this is the thing, is like the technology is advancing so quickly that even if our government had our best interests at heart, which they don't, even if they did, even if they weren't bought off by corporate America, they don't understand 90% of this stuff. They don't, that like, there are no restrictions on AI, on really much on facial recognition, on DNA data. Like, there's no restrictions on this stuff, to the point where our old privacy laws saying they can't tap our phone without getting a warrant are just like falling by the wayside because it's becoming meaningless. Like, because there are no restrictions on these newer technologies. Roomba's sending all your data to Amazon now. So last little thing I want to read here. Individuals can upload their test results to any number of databases, 23andMe, Ancestry, GEDmatch. Both Ancestry and 23andMe forbid police and the genetic genealogists who work with them from accessing their data for crime-fighting purposes. Quote, we do not allow law enforcement to use Ancestry's service to investigate crimes or to identify human remains, absent a valid court order. Well, we've already seen that courts will often just sign off on anything police want. The FISA court signs off on something like 99.8% of all the requested invasions of privacies that the police want and other government agencies want. So the idea of absent a court order, I don't know if that means shit.
It doesn't. And this also speaks to it reminded me of when there was apparently a court order to try and force Signal, the messaging app, to hand over information metadata about users. And Signal was like, no, look, dude, we can't. We legit cannot do that because we don't have it.
Yeah.
That is the kind of service that you need to use. Now, obviously, it doesn't exist for what we're talking about here. But because, like you said, Lee, it's so easy for the courts to just be like, yeah, you have to hand that over. And then the company, of course, is not going to fight that. They're not going to be like, look, motherfucker, on the grounds of privacy, no, they're not going to. They're going to be like, absolutely.
Very rarely do they do that. Yeah, you have to have a form of encryption that immediately deletes all the data afterwards. Yeah.
Right. So this is, and this applies, of course, to the use of regular emails or Facebook or whatever. Like, use it, and if you really care whether your fucking great grandfather was from Ireland or whatever the fuck, use these, but know what you're doing. Like, if it's that important to you, I'm not going to sit here and be like, tell you how to live your life, but know what you're giving up when you choose to engage with it. Because I really feel like that is important. The knowledge going into that is really important. And then you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. If you want to send a pint of your blood to the local police station, be my guest. It'd be weird, but actually it might be cool. I don't know. But just know that's.
And people act like, DNA can never be wrong, but in fact, they can have partial DNA matches that they then use to come after you with. There's a lot of ways that your DNA can be misread. It could be, you could have left DNA at the scene that ends up being a crime scene. You could have been there with 5 other people. Then you leave and one of them does some horrible shit. And all of a sudden your DNA is the one that's found at the scene. So the idea that you could never be like an innocent person found guilty because of DNA is just wrong.
Well, right. I remember a couple of years ago, I believe that people were fighting to get a guy off of death row because he had sex with a woman consensually. And then her ex-boyfriend had come over not long afterwards, raped and murdered her. And the first man who had sex with her, he also happened to be black. The second guy who actually raped and killed her was white.
Yeah.
But they just said that the black guy must have done it because, well, of course, her ex-boyfriend's DNA is going to be on her because maybe they decided to get back together. But like the idea that she might be dating somebody new and they could have consensual sex just did not even enter into this. And so, yeah, DNA can tell a very false story. Also, you mentioned the partial DNA, but cops will oftentimes, and there's records of this, if they get a partial print and the computer says, well, we've got all of, it's, it's only like 1 in 10,000 match because there's only a partial print. They can just decide, it kind of matches this guy who's already in the system and he's an asshole. So let's just pin it on him. They can do that if they have just a partial bit of DNA. So the CSI lab where it's like exact match, like that's not, because people don't usually go up to a crime scene and go dunk with their fucking fingers. Like that's not. Yeah. So a lot of it is bullshit. And don't even get this guy started on blood spray or whatever the fuck.
Spatter. Get it right.
I think blood spray sounds cooler, doesn't it?
I mean, I do think it should be splatter, but I don't know what spatter means. But
That's a good point. Can
yeah,
you
I
use the word
mentioned
spatter anywhere else.
only on porn sets. But yesterday I actually mentioned to people talking about a different topic that I did might have been 5-part series on how garbage forensic science is. Oh yeah, I was because a guy was released after 30 years, an innocent man, again, innocent black man. What are the odds?
I know.
Locked up for over 30 years. He's just been found completely innocent of the rape and murder of a woman, and he was convicted largely, or at least partially, on hair science, whatever it's called, follicle hair analysis or whatever. Which also the FBI has now said is not reliable. So I didn't even, of my 5-part series on forensic science being garbage, I didn't even get into hair science. So just each level of forensic science is just bullshit designed to pressure people or pressure witnesses to say someone else did it. Anyway, that's all. If you want to get that 5-part series, that's Government Secrets is the name of the podcast. But anyway, let's move on to the next topic. Should we do one more topic, or do you want to jump to the reveal of your new trailer?
That's up to you. You're driving this bus.
I'm driving the bus? Oh, shit. Okay, let's tear apart Joe Biden for 1 second here.
Goody.
Little longer than a second. But please, everybody, click thumbs up and click share and all those great things so that we can keep this show going. Really appreciate it. Leave a comment in the comment thread if you get a chance.
So these numbers, according to KFF, which I don't know what that's.
Is that the Kaiser? No, maybe not. I don't know.
I hate when
this is different than KFC though.
I
think so. Okay, so these Medicare numbers come from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Kentucky Fried Fish, KFF. So KFF.org. I'm not sure what it stands for. I hate when people use acronyms and then they don't fucking tell you what it stands for. But KFF has an ongoing research paper into Medicaid enrollment and unwinding tracker, which I don't know why they called it that. But
let me know when you're ready for me to just have a 30 seconds of screaming about the term unwinding.
Go ahead.
What the fuck is the term unwinding? No, it's the dumbest euphemism. It's designed to it's so that they don't have to say kicking you the fuck off of medical care. That's what that should say. This is the kicking you the fuck off of medical care in one of the richest countries in the world. And clearly you don't have a lot of money because you're on Medicaid. So this is kicking poor people the fuck off of Medicaid and medical care. And it's called unwinding. This would be like if you booted someone out onto the street and you said you were unwinding them. Okay.
Thank you. I agree. So they have thank you, Kaiser Family Foundation, which sounds dark. But anyway, so this is actually a very good tracker. So whatever you want to call yourselves, KFF, that's fine. So these numbers are current as of August 17th. So this is the 18th when we're filming this, so that's yesterday. According to their numbers, at least 4,816,000 Medicaid enrollees have been disenrolled. That's better than unwinding. Have been unwound.
Disenrolled still. I think it should be thrown out on their asses in the richest country in the world.
Based on the most current data from 44 states and the District of Columbia. So that's a fuck ton of people. And this happened
4.8 million.
This has happened because Biden officially ended the COVID emergency, which opened the door then for states to shove people off of Medicaid. And there is there's a wide variation in disenrollment rates across reporting states, ranging from 72% in Texas.
I know. Texas is crazy. It's insanity.
to 8% in Wyoming. Maybe because like there's hardly fucking anybody in Wyoming.
But
But
wait,
anyway,
look at this chart.
I know.
There's Texas on this
Texas.
on this side. It's insanity.
So, yeah, there's that publicly available unwinding
big
data.
surprise. The first two are Texas and Florida.
I know.
You want to know where they care least about human beings? Texas and Florida.
So this is also interesting. 75% of all people disenrolled had their coverage terminated for procedural reasons. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you've ever applied for Medicaid, which I have, and I don't recommend it, it's not fun. It's a fucking process, and they don't make it easy because they don't want to make it easy because they want you to die. And so the procedure in terms of getting Medicaid again or reapplying,
Yep.
which you had to do with with the end of the COVID emergency or whatever.
All kinds of complicated paperwork and dates, and
people don't know that they need to do it. I mean, one of the things that we did in mutual aid was try to get information out to people. Also, there's a language barrier for a lot of people. Not just Spanish, like Amharic, there an Ethiopian community is Tagalog in a Filipino community. So it's like there's a lot of language barriers and they don't fucking translate this bullshit. They'll send you a little postcard, but it's all in English. And even when it is in English, you're like, I got to do what? And the what? And you have to have internet access, which not everybody does. So there's all these barriers to being able to reapply. And then they'll say, like, the postcard or whatever will be dated like 2 weeks ago. And then it'll say, you have until fucking 3 days ago to reapply. And if you don't, then you're kicked off. And it's like, well, I just fucking got this thing.
Yep.
And this is, or they'll, if they don't send you like that little dumbass postcard, then, they might try calling. But what if they have an outdated number? Or what if you weren't answering your phone because you're like, I don't recognize that number and they didn't leave a message? Like, there's just so much bullshit that keeps people from being able to access Medicaid when, of course, people should just have health care across the board. It shouldn't fucking matter.
I mean, and they could strategically like word things confusingly so you get the paperwork wrong. I mean, you give me 12 pages of paperwork and I'm gonna get my middle name wrong. Like, it's just, I'm not a paperwork guy. Well, and right. So it's easy to fuck these things up, and they're not. This system is not meant to be filled with people going, "Oh, actually, that you need to put something else in that space." Instead, they go, "Okay, you're off Medicaid now."
Yeah, and they're making this point that a lot of the people that are being disenrolled are people who are still technically eligible for Medicaid because guess what? Medicaid is based on income. And it's not like people made a lot of money after the pandemic officially ended. So people are still eligible, but they're getting kicked off because of these procedural barriers.
And this is under a Democratic administration.
Yeah.
Do I have that right? Is there a Democrat in office? Because they're the ones that care and want to give us health care, correct?
That's what they said. I read it on a pamphlet.
Yeah.
They sent out a postcard when we got kicked off of Medicaid. They also sent out a postcard that said, we love you and you should have health care. So I thought that was nice.
That's nice. That's nice of them.
Yeah.
The cover of the booklet of how you've been kicked off and what kind of balm to put on your ass as you land on the street. Also said on the front, we love you and you should have health care.
But the balm is not covered by health care. So you have to pay out of pocket for that. It's
out of pocket for the balm.
To further fuckify this whole thing, children account for 1/3 or 33% of Medicaid disenrollments in the 14 states reported age breakdown. So it's probably more because there are only 14 states that show the age of people who have been kicked off. Because a lot of people, spoiler alert, people listening might already know this. A lot of poor people also have dependents. And a lot of, we covered just 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, how 11 million children are officially living under poverty in the United States, which is obviously higher than that because the poverty line is some bullshit. So how many kids now don't have access to healthcare because of these disenrollments, and kids with chronic illnesses, kids with, whatever. It's fucking heinous.
Build back heinous. That's what Biden said.
Yes. So
So 4.8 million have been kicked off so far, and a third of those at least are children. And this is the party that says they want to give you health care.
Yeah. And there's a lot of blue states. I think a lot of people are like, oh, Texas and Florida, of course. But this article in Politico also points out that there's a shit ton of so-called blue states that are kicking a lot of people off of Medicaid.
Even neoliberal outlet Politico has admitted it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just that they had the article. I fucking hate Politico, but
no, I know. But sometimes it's good to be like, hey, look, even the neoliberal bullshit outlets are noticing to some degree that millions are kicked off healthcare.
So, yeah. So this is across the board. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle your state is on. You are just as likely to get kicked off. Maybe slower. Maybe the blue state will kick you off slower, but they're kicking people off of Medicaid as well.
And actually, this Politico article, because I was trying to figure out what they meant by Biden administration warns states as millions lose Medicaid. It's because this is a neoliberal outlet. They were trying to make Biden look good. And basically, it's the Biden administration warning the states that they're kicking people off against the ways they should, or what, like they're kicking too many people off of Medicaid, and they're not really allowed to do that. So you've got a guy who's just decided that they're going to go through with this, kicking everyone off of Medicaid. He easily could have kept everyone on it. And this article is like, but poor Biden is telling the states not to do that.
But then they also say, it also says in the article that there's a call center where people can call to try and reapply and shit. It says that the states are in this particular case, Rhode Island is working with federal officials to build additional capacity at the call center. But the state has reduced its application processing times in order to meet federal guidelines as of August 1st. Reduced its application process,
giving them less time to actually go through the process,
right?
In order to meet federal guidelines. So they're being rushed to do this shit.
And so, again, like, the federal government is not on your side. They don't fucking. It's not Biden being like, oh, again, like, I wish I could do something about it. I wish I could help.
He's like, if I meet the guy who has control over any of this stuff, I am going to put a word in. I am going to tell him that this is inappropriate, okay? That this country should have health care for all. If I meet that guy, and listen, this is a direct quote, all this from Biden. And listen, I have been working my way up the ladder for 70 some years, and one day I'm going to get there and I'm going to tell him, no, not on my watch, good sir. That's all a direct quote from Biden.
Oh, good.
Yeah, if he meets that guy who has control over any of this, he's going to do something.
So this article also says that there were letters sent out to the states, which I don't even understand what that means, but
I don't know what a letter is. What year is this?
That the CMS, the federal agency, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, was concerned at the rapid rate of disenrollment. Now, this is some bullshit. And I know that Politico wants you to think that, like, see, the Democrats are concerned.
They're concerned.
This is classic Democrat bullshit.
Do they have a lot of concern.
They send letters.
They are First of all, concerned.
When you send a letter to the state, who do you send it to? Do you send it to the governor? Do you send it to, like, the healthcare agency of that state?
It's actually the comptroller that opens those letters. She's sitting there with a little letter opener.
You know what I think? I think that shit gets sent to, like, some fucking 7-Eleven in Topeka, Kansas, and ends up being used as toilet paper. That's what I fucking
think. Due
to
cutbacks, the 7-Eleven clerk is also the comptroller. So,
but, like, what the fuck? You sent a letter saying that you're concerned? That would be like if somebody asked you to stage an intervention and you're like, I sent a letter to my friends saying that their heroin use is concerning. Good. That'll do a lot. Thanks.
I sent a postcard with a poop emoji on the back, and I think that should probably clear it up.
So,
So Biden's done all he can do. The Biden administration, and I always try to make it clear, when I say Biden does something, I don't mean Biden's doing anything. Like fucking that guy, they just have him in a room, just sitting on a chamber pot. But so when I say Biden does, I mean his administration, these sociopaths that he's surrounded by. He also is one, but he's not. It's interesting. He's actually less of a sociopath now because he doesn't have the mental acuity to be a sociopath. Because he just sits and watches TV. But it's mainly Wheel of Fortune. But they show him 1975.
Wheel of Fortune still.
It is still a thing. But they show him 1975 episodes of Wheel of Fortune because he thinks those are the current ones.
They're probably better.
I think Pat Sajak wasn't that the guy, just left or was just fired or whatever. And he's like, first of all, he's far right wing and he's like furious. And so he's been yelling about how angry he is that he's not. I don't know.
Anyway. But yeah, so this is just throwing in some media literacy here. This is classic. This is a classic case of like the Politico trying to make them sound good by like, well, they sent letters. And the CMS is concerned. This is the type of shit that you should be looking for in all media outlets that are clearly, skewed one way or the other.
Yeah.
Concerned, or they sent a letter, or whatever the fuck. It's like, okay, but what did you do? I mean,
he kicked 4.8 million off of Medicaid. That's what he did. That's what they did.
Thank you.
Could you imagine if I don't know if I had control over something, if I was the CEO of an organization and I fired all the workers without any kind of advance warning or anything. And then I also sent them a letter that said, very concerned about this.
Concerned.
It's very upsetting. I mean, corporations do that shit. But okay, so we're going to show you now for the first time on Common Sense / Dangerous Ideas, the new trailer for Eleanor's new documentary, which everyone's got to see. But after that, we're going to go to just rumble.com/LeeCamp. But we'll go ahead and show the trailer to everybody. Is there anything, what should we say to prep people for this trailer?
Well, I made the trailer so I wouldn't have to prep people.
And I have been shot down, folks. I am tail between the legs.
Oh, no.
Okay. For those of you, I will narrate every visual for everyone listening on the podcast. Okay, we're on a road. There's trees next to it.
Right. Just go to tothetreesfilm.com if you're listening.
If you're listening to the podcast, you can also watch the trailer at tothetreesfilm.com. Here we go. Oh, wait, no. I haven't shared the visual yet.
Here we go. Nope. You know what I'll do? I will cut this out of the podcast so I won't be just fucking with people's emotions.
Well, we still need to promote your awesome movies.
No, I know, but I'll cut out.
All over Northern California, all over the whole Pacific Northwest, like thousands and thousands of acres are being clear cut every year. If we don't really do something about what's happening, we might be able to save a few small places here and there, but we can win the battle, but we're going to lose the war unless a whole bunch of people get involved and say, like, no more.
The people who came to this continent came with a mindset of extraction. I think when places are built with those kinds of mindsets, it doesn't leave a lot of space for something different or more.
Unfortunately, only 2 to 5% of the historic pre-European settlement old growth is still remaining, and there is nothing against the law in cutting a tree that's over 1,000 years old.
We can't protect everything, but we could even if we can't figure out an overall plan that's going to work, we could still just keep living in opposition to the extraction that's happening and fight it in whichever ways we can.
I think we could still do it if we put our mindset together. I really do. I don't know if we got it in us. Is that, nature bats last, and it usually cleans up.
There we go. That is the new trailer for To the Trees.
So it'll be out next Tuesday, the 22nd. So, yeah.
Yeah, I hope everybody checks it out. It's been a couple of years in the works.
Yeah,
and
I didn't want it to be, but some shit happened.
And we'll keep talking, but we'll talk about it more. But I do want to add here, because neither of us are flexible enough to toot our own horns, that Eleanor's last film, her first documentary, received all kinds of awards. It was accepted into something like 12 or 13 film festivals, which just getting in is not easy. And so the last one really did very well and was very highly received. So I hope everyone checks out this one, because it's also epic and important.
Thank you. And oddly enough, one of the groups that I spoke to is Epic. That's the name of the organization.
Oh, okay.
It stands for something that I can't remember. It's like environmental protection something. So basically the elevator pitch of the film is that it highlights forest defense tactics, a diversity of tactics in Northern California specifically, but ones that range across the globe, really. And it also calls into question our current relationships to nature and how we might reframe them and why we have to reframe them if we want a livable future. So that's the elevator pitch of that.
Very exciting. All right, folks, we're headed over to, well, just one more time, that's tothetreesfilm.com.
Out Tuesday, August 22nd.
August 22nd. All right, folks, we're headed over to rumble.com/Lee Camp. That's, hey, thank you, TC, for the donation. Rumble.com/Lee Camp for the rest of this live stream. And of course, Locals, it'll continue streaming live on Locals. I will put the, let's see, the direct Rumble link here in the comment thread. And we got a bunch more stories coming for you. So please join us over there. It's free to join us and free to comment over there as well. All right. I want to move this. This will only take a second because I have to show this.
Is this another 30-second screaming about something?
Well, maybe. I don't know. I haven't planned the screaming yet.
Oh, okay.
This is Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
Oh.
Who
I hate that fucking guy.
who has no pupils because he does not have a soul
Pupils?
in his eyes. He has no pupils.
Huh.
It's just black.
Oh, that's
it's
so
just
creepy.
dark black. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's terrifying.
That's really creepy.
Terrifying.
Thank you for inviting me and my family to be with you on this solemn occasion. 80 years ago, no one would have dared to imagine a gathering like this. Under the auspices of the Mayor of Bialystok.
Yeah, no, he's fucking horrifying.
Oh,
Anybody-
how did I never noticed that?
Anybody listening to the podcast, look up an image of Antony Blinken.
Anyone listening to the podcast, Eleanor just realized that Antony Blinken has no pupils.
No pupils.
And it's fucking terrifying. Oh my
Someone
God.
actually stole the pupils out of his eye, the soul out of his body, and the H out of his first name. It was the same guy took all three at the same time.
I've wondered about that before, but was it just like his parents were
Idiots? Yeah.
drunk when they were writing his name on the form? I don't know.